Hello, ghouls, guys, gals, humanoids of all kinds, and any other type of life forms that may be streaming this broadcast. You are now joining me, Ashley Storm, as we get the paranormal, UFOs, cryptids, serial killers, and dark history all under one freaky little roof. A gathering place for the morbid curiosity to come and play and learn about the deepest, darkest parts of the unknown. Join myself and special guests such as paratech makers, MUFON experts, cryptid hunters, and segments of terrifying tales from around the world in person. Delve more in depth to these subjects than you ever have before. Take my hand and join me on our adventure as we go storming the unknown. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of Storming the Unknown. Tonight, our special guest is going to be you guys. A lot of the times, whenever we do these interviews and we get all of these questions, but we can't ever get them answered in time. So tonight, it's all about you guys. Ask about the locations that you guys always ask about. Ask about the different types of experiences that we have. Also tonight, it's not just about the paranormal. We are going to be talking about UFOs, cryptids, serial killers, everything that's just dark, weird, and horrible. We can discuss it. So I'm going to wait for everybody else to kind of just come in here real quick, and I'm going to share it a few times, and then we will get started. If you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and start in the comments, and I will catch up to them. And then we are also going to do a special segment tonight on one of my, not favorite serial killers, but one of the ones that I find the most interesting. And it is burning up in here, so I'm sorry that I look a hot mess, because it's just Texas summers, man. Okay. If you don't catch this live, by the way, you can also do it in archives, and I will go ahead and catch up to everything afterwards like I normally do, especially to, again, the questions that we don't get to whenever we are live, because there are so many of them, and sometimes they just disappear from the feed, so I don't get to them in time. While we're waiting for everybody else to come in, I'm going to go ahead and start with our serial killer segment tonight. So, everybody pretty much knows the story of H.H. Holmes. You hear one version or another. Some accounts say that he only killed up to 9 people. Those were as many bodies as they could find as they could prove. Then he admitted to 27, but researchers over the years think he killed more than 200 people. What he had done was like no other serial killer we've seen since, or that we know of, or that had happened to that point in time when he was caught and all of his atrocities came to light. He was absolutely insane, but he was kind of a genius, like most of them are. So here we have the original murder house, what it was called the Murder Castle after a while, because when he built this hotel, it's a 3-story hotel that he built, and after the World's Fair in Chicago came, he figured that'd be a great way to get out of town traffic, all of these people who wouldn't be missed, all of these people who had no way of communicating as easily or finding each other, I guess you would say locally, because you had all of these travelers out from Europe, everywhere in the world, coming in to see the goods at the World's Trade Fair in Chicago. He killed up to, I do believe it was 4 women who were married or engaged at one point, and he got them to sign over their will. Like, he was included in their will, got everything when they passed, and these women went missing and were never heard from again. Tonight we're going to go over the 4 floor plans of the hotel and look at what he actually accomplished. What he did, that way nobody knew what he was doing, was he would hire different architecture groups, one at a time, build certain sections of the hotel, one floor at a time, or one section at a time. That way, nobody ever knew what he was doing. They didn't know about the secret corridors, the trap chambers, and there were gas chambers as well that were connected inside of these walls that connected in these rooms. So he could sneak in at any point, kidnap these people, and then torture them and kill them in any way he wanted. Pardon me. I mean, could you just imagine? That's something literally straight out of a horror movie. To be sleeping in your hotel room one night, just thinking something's going bump in the night, and really it's a serial killer trying to take you. And after they closed it down, after they caught him, they actually tried to turn it into a museum and called it, I think, the Holmes Castle of Killing. And the town got so mad that they actually burned it down. It was pretty insane. Here's the other floor plans and sketches that were actually included at one point. It takes a while for you guys to be able to see that. But, here we go. This was actually included in the newspaper at the time. It shows the layout, and I'll go more in depth into that layout that you guys see over on this side. I have that blown up for y'all. But these were little caskets and little, what would you call it? Like, I guess you could say kilns, but for humans. Instead of using it for pottery like you're supposed to, he would put the human beings in there to dispose of their bodies. Because keep in mind, he admitted to killing 27 people and they could only find 9. So what he did with those other bodies and then the other 200 that the researchers presume that he actually killed, because this was over a span of 20 years really, him traveling back and forth. Once at one point he was a pharmacist and would kill the elderly patients, confide in them, get their trust, and get in their will, and then give them the wrong medications or kind of edge them over to the other side prematurely. And that he was freaking insane. And again, it's going to take a minute for these images to load on y'all's side. So just give it 1 minute. Okay. Now here, you can actually see how it's broken down. So he would have the reception rooms, and it wasn't just in the actual guest rooms that he had these secret hidden passageways. He had them everywhere in the hotel, so at any point, he could do as he wanted. This is the reception room. They had a secret chamber, and it led to the 5-door room, which had pretty much all of the different meeting points for all of his back ways or different types of chambers that he had. So he had things called dark rooms, which is where he would take them, bind them, kind of tie them up, get them quiet to where he could get them into the other chambers without being heard. And then he would either hang them, he would torture them, he would take their bodies and sell them for medical cadavers. He would gas them, he would choke them, and he had a different room for every one of those activities that he did to those people. So you have the different secret rooms, you have the sealed rooms that are all bricked in, and that would actually be where he would keep people. At one point, one lady who was still surviving was at one point engaged to him and said that she had been trapped in a brick room, that he got mad at her one evening, threw her in a brick room and kept her there for, she said, she didn't know how long. And after she got out, she escaped. But she's one of the many people that we actually see, I guess, surviving. He claimed her as a victim. There were several people that he claimed as victims, and they were found living. So it begs to differ how many people he really killed. There's just so many different accounts of it. You have the hanging secret chamber right in this area, and that connected to the asphyxiation chamber that was right down here. So it had gas connections, and he could actually let the gas start filling up in that one room and he would open vents to different guest rooms and suffocate them that way or knock them out so he could go in and get their bodies. And you have these things here where you see the death shaft and the dummy elevator for lowering bodies. That was for the bottom floor, where he actually dismembered the bodies or did made them into cadavers and sold them to medical schools, because back then they weren't they didn't really care how they got the bodies as long as they had them. So, here we go. All right. Now, with H.H. Holmes, he started out just obsessed with skeletons and death, and his parents, everybody at a very early age thought something was just very off with him. He was engaged many times, but he was never, I think he was married maybe once, but even she ended up murdered. Nobody could ever find her, at least. Even the cops, when he got arrested and he got convicted of the other 9 deaths, they still could not find her. So he wanted to, I guess, incorporate his obsession with the morbidity into being a doctor. So he did go to medical school. He got a job working at a pharmacy after he graduated. And the owner of the drugstore actually passed away, and Holmes kind of took over, and this is where he got his first few victims. So this is where he got those older patients to confide in him, the ones that were lonely, the ones that didn't have any family left or family to look after them, and he got put into their will. So as soon as they passed away, he would get their money. Now, when you're old like that, especially back in those days, nobody sat there and looked into it. Nobody did testing. There weren't really more in-depth autopsies like we have nowadays. You had just hearsay and trust, and that was enough for people. And he got away with murder for years before he got caught and charged with fraud. He didn't even get charged with murder. He got charged with fraud. And that's his first run-in with the law, but they just let him go. He doesn't serve any time for it. They just let him go off all willy-nilly. And he decided, and this was like about a 4-year span in between, because he started this in 1884, and then in 1889, he was, in 1889, he started building the castle, the 3-story hotel, and this was right across in a lot that was across from the Chicago World's Fair. He finished in like 1891, so it took quite a few years just for him to build this insanity. Now remember, he hired different crews every single time. He did not have the same crew working ever or on the same parts of the house. Every single section of that house, including all of the different asphyxiation chambers, sorry, it's so hot, all of the different gas chambers, the hanging rooms, the different chutes, the drop to downstairs where he would make their bodies cadavers. All of that was built by different people. Now, there's a lot of accounts that the people that went in and did construction for him were just vagabonds or people he found in the street that, would work for a nominal fee and didn't have any family really. So what happened to those people? Because did he really want anybody telling him how weird it looked or that he was having certain things installed? Did he kill them too? And again, remember, most of the bodies were not found. He admitted to at least 27, including people who worked in construction crews on his murder castle, as they called it. Alright, one of the things I found that I didn't know about him was that he actually had all of his employees and the guests, they were all required to have life insurance policies. They could not stay in the hotel if they did not have a life insurance policy. He would cash in on it. How, I don't understand. But he would make sure that they had their life insurance policies. And again, they were travelers, they were visitors from far away. So, who was really going to say otherwise? He collected so much money over the years. It's crazy. And people who were overseas had no idea where their family members were. Because remember, it's not as easy as communicating as it is today. We can just pick up our cell phones and text one another. We can just sit there and call each other, make sure everybody's okay, everything's on the up and up. But back then, you would have to wait literally weeks or sometimes months, depending on what was going on, especially in that era of time. In the late 1800s, you don't have the same type of carrier crafts that you had even in like the early 1900s for quicker mail delivery. You did telegrams and things like that. But again, if you couldn't get a hold of that person, you were going to have to wait how long until you could actually speak to them again. Remember, guys, tonight is all about y'all. So your questions, go ahead and type them in. If you have anything you want to talk about, I can't see the comments for some reason. But let me see if I can pull it up on my phone, because the live isn't showing them to me. It says that there are comments, but let me see. Sorry, I wasn't ignoring you. I just thought nobody was commenting, so give me 1 second and I'll look. It's not as easy as communicating as it is today. Hey guys. Hey Fred. Hey Sandy. Alright, so now that I can see it, sorry, you guys go ahead and ask your questions, and everything is coming through on my phone, so I'll be watching there. So if I'm looking down from time to time, I'm just trying to see your questions. So about 2 years after he built the hotel, the World Fair came around again, and that was just literally a hunting ground for him. He decided he was going to, I guess, I don't want to curse, but go ape shit. And he rented out over hundreds of rooms. So who knows how many of these people even who weren't like murdered, but might have encountered something. They were drugged, they were gassed. You have all of these different ways of knocking people out and doing things to them, and them never knowing. How many people went through that hotel and just, oh man, it's insane to think about something like that. And nowadays we don't really hear about serial killers the way we used to. I mean, especially in the 70s and 80s, they became not necessarily kind of prominent, but it was like the first wave of people just doing it in masses and doing it in these horrific ways that you hadn't seen in so long. Are people just better about hiding it now? I mean, have we given them enough guides by, all of those murder mystery shows and things like that? Have we given them tools to avoid being captured now? Made them smarter? Because I don't think that there's just nobody out there doing stuff like that. They just got smarter about it. Yes, I am talking about H.H. Holmes. I showed the pictures of all of the different, hallways, the different chambers, all of the different drops and shoots that he had, like body shoots, like you would see in Sweeney Todd. Yeah. Okay, another thing I wanted to talk about tonight. And remember, if you have questions, if you're just joining in, if you have questions, type them in and I will get to them. Was skinwalkers. Because I was just having a conversation with Dave Miller about that. And I think a lot of what we think about when we think skinwalkers is kind of like werewolves almost. But apparently that's not true. It's a black magic. It's a Native American black magic, and people can use it to transform into these things, kind of like a lycanthropy. But you can take whatever shape you want. So if you had a wolf skin, you could wear that. That would be what you transform into. If you had a bear skin, that's what you have. That's what you would transform into. Dogs, etc. Anything that you want. It doesn't just have to be one thing or another. So he said when we see things like Bigfoot or we think we see cryptids of sorts, that's not really what we're seeing. It's a type of skinwalker ability, and they're just taking the form of what they want. Yeah, he was sick. He was super sick. But he was a genius, like most of them are. Like I said, I mean, to go through that much trouble and not get caught for one. I mean, even just to not get caught in the process of building this place. That in itself was amazing. Not amazing, but I mean, that was a feat. I sound like I like him. I don't, I promise. I'm just into weird stuff like that. It's just always amazed me at how these people get away with doing so much. I mean, especially in the 1800s and the early 1900s, police work and the actual like task force that they have compared to today, the different tools and different types of help that they can get now on cases like this. I mean, it's mind-blowing, because had it not been for fraud, because that's why he got arrested again. It wasn't even for murder after the hotel. It was actually because of fraud, again, from another lady that he was marrying. So you get caught again for fraud. And it just so happened that he admitted to it when he got pulled in. I mean, it was just sheer luck. Up here, there are tree people that protect the forest put in place by native shamans. That is very interesting. They're just called tree people. Because in Guam, and I think we've had this conversation before too, Sandy, that I grew up in a very spiritual place. I mean, Guam, we believe in everything. We have the Tatamonas, we have the Duendes, we have our ancestors. The Tatamonas are the ancestors of our islands. Exactly. The Tatamonas are there. They're the ancestors of our island, and they're there to protect it from anybody who disrespects it. Now, you have the Latte Stones, which are kind of like their pillars of strength and their sources of energy. And then you also have the Bunelas trees, that's called the fire trees. The fire trees, if you touch them, if you go onto these lands, when you don't ask permission first from the landowner, you get immensely sick, especially if you touch the Latte Stones or the Bunelas trees. The Bunelas trees especially. There was an episode on Destination America, I think, or no, it was the one with Josh Gates where he went around doing haunted locations, Destination something, and he went to Guam one time. And I remember watching that episode, and I was pretty young, maybe like 13 or 14, and they went into the forest and didn't listen to anything any of the older Chamorro people or any of the Chamorro people that they had talked to that day, didn't listen to anything they had to say about asking permission, about doing these rituals before you do certain things, about very specifically not touching the Bunelas trees or the Latte Stones and things like that. Well, they went, they did it, and they continued. One of the girls, who I guess is more of their rough and tumble type, and she has, I guess, like the danger part of everything they do down. She's even the one that went and did the rock climbing part of it. So she goes to attach the hook for the rappel line that they need, because they're going down this little mountainside. And she sees a bunch of different trees that she could hang it from. She specifically picks the Bunelas tree, the fire tree, the tree that everybody is told to stay away from. Even as children, we don't play near that tree because we'll get sick. Just how we grew up. I mean, very superstitious, but very aware. It's all about respect. The ancestors did protect the island. She tied it around that tree. Everybody else was kind of hesitant about going. They were like, oh, they told us not to do this. She's like, it's fine, you didn't touch the tree. Everybody else goes down, perfectly fine. She's the last one to go down. and she falls, scrapes up her back, scrapes up everything on her because the rope just like came off. Just randomly came off because she touched the tree. She was not supposed to do that. She got so sick that it lasted for maybe weeks afterwards, and she went to different doctors, she went to different shamans, everything, stateside in California where they were. Nothing worked. She flew back to Guam, got blessed by one of the priestess, as we call them, one of the ones that lives, on the very high hill and does all of the medicine woman type stuff, because in Guam we don't go to the doctors when we're sick when we're little. We go to the medicine woman. Destination Truth. Yes, thank you, Fred. Destination Truth. That's what it's called. Hey, Chris. Hey, Goose. If you guys have any questions or anything in particular, like a topic that you'd like to speak about, go ahead and type it in the comments. So yeah, she went back, she got blessed, and then she was finally okay. Do you think she'll ever touch that Bonellis tree again, though? I don't think so, because ancestral, not necessarily magic, but that concentrated belief of power, whether it be Native American, whether it be like from Guam, Micronesian, Polynesian, anything, you have such a concentrated belief of power and respect and connection to the land. I think that's one of the most important things, that connection to the land. Being so connected and at one with the world and understanding and appreciating its value definitely helps that energetic bond that they keep between the two of them and why they can be so resilient after the years. How long ago did the first ancestors that I'm talking about that protect the island pass away? Over hundreds and hundreds of years ago. But they are still there all the time. In Guam, you do not leave your baby's diaper out in public unless you spray it down with a perfume or something like that. You have to spray it with a perfume to cover the baby's scent, or the baby gets followed by the tatomona because the island has claimed it. You've left your scent on the island claims it. And that's not necessarily like a bad thing or a negative thing. When I say claim it, it's just you get pinch marks everywhere. I've actually seen it happen, and it's really weird. You have like these little pinch marks everywhere. Nothing really bad ever happens, but it is one of the weirdest things in the world. The duendes too. A shapeshifter one time. Now, what about that experience makes you say that it was a shapeshifter, though? I mean, like, did it do it right in front of your eyes? Was it from human to some type of animal? Or was it from an animal to another type of animal? Now, the duendes, and that's one of the things I was talking about recently with Matt Cooper from another paranormal group. They call them the green people, I think, or the forest people, something like that. And they're little green guys that walk around causing trouble. And this was in the United States. Now in Guam, we have something called the duendes, which is pretty much the same thing. These little green children-like people who are in these green leaf headbands that's made out of the palm tree leaves. And they have like palm tree leaf skirts. And they have these green, bright, glowing eyes. And this was one of my first experiences ever with something weird like that. My little brother would sit up at night and play peekaboo with something outside. He would sit up at the window and look at the forest line, because in Guam, everywhere is forest when it's not, little tin houses. It's nothing but, not forest, but jungle. The jungle line's maybe like 5 feet from our house. He would sit up at night and just stare and play peekaboo with something. All the while, you see two little green dots out in the jungle, and my brother's eyes were green, like had this little green twinkle to them. Even when he would look over and look away, you ask him what he's doing, and I very specifically remember my mom asking him one time, "What are you doing? Who are you playing with?" And he said, "My friends." There was nobody out there, except for those green glowing dots. You've never really seen them. the lock on our doors, because again, it's like tin huts that you live in Guam. The top lock was at the very, very top. And I mean very top, because there were lots of children that lived in the house. There's no way my brother, who was like 2 or 3 years old at the time, could have gotten up. Even on a chair, he wasn't big enough to open up that lock. He got out one night, and I mean, trust me, doors are locked every night. He got out that night, and we found him sitting at the edge of the jungle playing peekaboo with somebody. After that, my parents flipped shit. My mom, who's not even religious at all, like at all, decides we need to call in a priest or something like that because something weird's happening with them. They call him in, and then the priest bless the house, puts this crucifix over our window. Never happened again. And you ask my brother, do you still see your friends? What friends? Didn't even remember them, even though he played with them every night. And I remember, and this was, I tell you, I was afraid of my brother for the longest time because I had seen movies like Damien or, Rosemary's Baby and stuff like that. When I tell you, I thought he was like a little devil child or something because of the way he responded to the priest. He said, "My friends are going to be mad at you." When he was inside the house blessing it and blessing the room, as soon as he put the crucifix right above the window, he said, "My friends are going to be mad at you." Keep in mind, this is like a 2-3-year-old, like, just looking at this man with all the intent of telling him something's going to be upset at you. But I don't feel they're evil at all. They're mischievous, very mischievous. I don't ever feel like it was evil. It's just really, really weird. And I mean, it goes on for centuries, and different folklore and stuff too, from all over the world, the same type of creature. It's crazy. Sandy said, yes, in front of our eyes, was from tall, strange, beast kind of person to a large canine type of dog or wolf. So maybe like we said, the skinwalker type thing. Because apparently that's what we should just classify it as. Even Bigfoot or the different types of bigger cryptids we see. Apparently that's all just skinwalker activity from what I've been explained. Chris McKinnell said, it sounds like the green children that appeared in the 12th century England. They spoke a strange language and only ate broad beans. See? Another instance where it's somewhere else in the world. It's not just in Guam where we experience this. He said this was in England. Matt Cooper that I was speaking with about that instance it's like in North Carolina or something. So you have it happening in the U.S., you have it happening in Europe, you have it happening in Micronesia. So is this something that travels, or is it a same type of folklore that happens everywhere around the world and just shifts its background kind of culturally, almost? Now, Chris says it could also be a tulpa. That's a very interesting concept because, again, like it's experienced everywhere, so it's almost like a folklore. Now, for those of you who don't know, a tulpa is pretty much a paranormal object or being, like the little green people, that it's created by focused mental power. And what we mean by that is that it is thought of so much, that it is written about so much. Again, folklore can be a huge reason we experience these types of creatures or think we have these types of encounters. Tulpas, it's just a constant, for instance, Slender Man, how Slender Man everybody thinks it's real. At a certain point, if the folklore keeps going, if people put enough concentration, energy, and thought into that, that's something that you can create into a tulpa. Any type of horror story, any type of just raw idea that catches a flame and takes off and is given so much energy, both anger, fear, happiness, anything. We can manifest it pretty much just by giving it that power or thought even. That's very interesting, Chris. I would never have thought about it like that, honestly, but that is absolutely plausible. Sandy said a Native American man told us the shamans around here place them in our forest, and shapeshifters are common here, from what he told us, and that was after your experience. Now, Sandy, because from what I was told, they believe that skinwalkers and that type of phenomena actually only happens because of dark Native American magic. Now, do you believe shapeshifters are different from skinwalkers, or do you believe it's all just kind of under the same roof? I personally believe it might be something that's even hereditary. I mean, you have people who, like you and your children, you have that ability too. My mom has it. I have it. It's, a genealogy thing. When it comes down to being able to shapeshift or possess those certain powers or strengths, does that also boil down to a lineage thing, especially with what we call shapeshifters, skinwalkers, and those types of things? Chris said Slender Man has actually manifested already, and it is in the public consciousness now. Now that creeps me out, because I was okay when he was just a creepypasta story, and I'm alright with ghostesses and spirits, but Slender Man is a no-no. That's what drives me nuts, is the fact that people aren't aware that even just their thoughts and their words, the things that come out of their mouth, hold so much energy that it can actually affect and change the reality of our world. Everything is acted upon, negative, positive, everything. That includes our thoughts, our words. That is all energy as well. It's insane how neglectful people can be at times. They say you can speak good things into the world. You can also speak negative things into the world. You can also speak incredibly dangerous things into the world by being irresponsible as well. Okay, so one thing I want to talk about while I have Chris here is the difference between a demonic entity and the difference between a malevolent energy. If you were a bad person in life, you're going to be a bad person in death. If you were angry, if you were aggressive, you're going to be angry and aggressive as a spirit, especially if you do not have if you have unfinished business. If you left suddenly, if you left abruptly, if you're one of those who just doesn't know where you are, that sheer confusion that even the good spirits that you encounter from time to time that are suffering from that confusion, the anger that comes off of them, that hostility almost, because that confusion is just so immense that it turns them almost into a different person. Their energy shifts. They would go from being the color that you would normally see a positive energy being to a mired, almost gray kind of color. It's like a shift between black and gray almost. And that's when you need to help them, when they're in the midst of kind of chaos, it feels like chaos to me when I'm around them. Experiencing something truly, truly demonic, something that is not of this world, is so incredibly rare that when we treat everything like it's demonic, just because it's negative, just because it's aggressive, just because it comes to us with hostility, anger, but the signs of three people, read a lot into the mark of the Trinity and all of those things. And I really wish that people would understand that, again, with the breathing energy, by just even thoughts and words, we make situations so much worse than they need to be for people. These people invite us into their homes, try to figure out what's going on with them, just for it to be maybe a family member who's been trying to reach out for forever and is getting frustrated and can't communicate. So they're starting to be a little bit more forceful with what they do, touching or making things move, lights flickering, things like that. And it's not demonic. Somebody's just trying to get your attention. When we go in and we treat it like it's demonic, it either angers the energies, or again, breathing that life like a tulpa, like Chris mentioned almost, but not a tulpa. You actually can bring forth that evil if you think about it enough. If you concentrate your energy enough, you can bring evil into somebody's home by focusing on evil instead of figuring out what it actually is. Chris said, quantum physics proves we shape our reality. Absolutely. And people, again, it's easier for you to be complacent and to be in a bubble than it would be to think about the fact that even just one word from your mouth can shift everything in your life, other than possibly ghosts there. Okay. Chris said, hold on, let me type it on. When you believe in something, the energy takes shape of your beliefs, whether it be black-eyed children or shadow people or fairies or Christian demons. These entities have intelligence and feed off of our fears. If we are positive, they starve. You're making excellent points. Thank you. That's a huge reason, actually, why I use... Okay, people really don't think that science and religion can go together. That's your own opinion. I believe science can go with anything. Now, especially Tesla's science. Tesla was a beautiful, crazy man who was never appreciated enough, and who, it really, really bothers me that he does not get nearly as much credit as he should have in any aspect. So what I use in my investigations, this is my focal point. A lot of it has to be, as science-based as it can get, whether it be recreating the same, and it's going to be impossible unless you have trillions of dollars to spend on making a location completely isolated and making it to where you can create the same controlled experiment time and time again to get the same results. What we can do, though, is provide ourselves with the same type of mindset over and over again when we're in these situations. That way we're not swayed either way. We go into different trains of thoughts. When we go into these places that other teams have been into and we hear their experiences and hear their stories, we should never sit there, go in and expecting the same things that they did, or leading ourselves to get the same answers that they did or get the same types of things. Let the energy lead you, always. My motto for my team is, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Everything is an energy. There's white lights. There's energies that weren't even born into this plane yet, or that never will be. The ones that watch us, that white light you feel. If you've ever felt like somebody was with you during a particularly hard time, if you've ever had like a not necessarily near-death experience, even those too, that changes a lot of how people perceive things in life. If you have ever felt that charge of electricity around you when there's no reason for it, that calming sensation, or even just those chills and tingles that you get, on a hot summer day, that's some type of energy reaching out to you. And you'll never know what level of energy it is until you educate yourself on more than just demons and ghosts. It's not just demons and ghosts. Yeah, Sandy, he was the best. I really, really wish he were around longer and the government didn't silence him as much. I mean, Could you imagine where we'd be now if they didn't take most of this stuff away from us? Science is based on testable theories, but theories on the paranormal are limited still. Once we have a unified field theory, then we can start to unlock the paranormal. Absolutely, Chris. And don't stop. This is what this is all about. It's all about you guys tonight. Bring up the topics. Give me stuff to talk about with you guys. That's what I want. I love the discussions, the different topics and points that we can reach together. And again, it's all about learning and teaching. Not saying that I'm teaching anybody, but it's all about learning. When we have open discussions and we come together and we all ask our questions, we can get so many more answers. Y'all, I'm dying right now. It is so hot. I know you hear me panting, but I'm pregnant and I'm hot, so you gotta forgive me. Now, one thing that I did want to touch base about with the whole, demons and dark energy type things, it's kind of upsetting me now to see how many people are willing to take groups. I recently saw a group, like a paid tour for a location that I personally have been to. I went back because I just needed more answers. But after the first time that I went was actually when I started talking to Chris, who's in the chat right now. I reached out to Tony Spira, who is, I guess, kind of, I don't know if he's necessarily as involved in the paranormal as you are, Chris, but at that time, I just reached out to somebody that I knew would have reliable resources on demonology and those types of darker energies and spirits and just entities, everything incorporated in that, because I went to this location particularly to show that it was over exaggerated, to show that not everything was evil, not everything was mean. And as soon as I got there, I knew I shouldn't have gotten out of my car. As soon as I got there, the place just, I see certain colors of different things. Different places give off different colors, and sometimes the places can hide themselves from me. Sometimes they can show me a different color, and then it shifts as soon as I'm in this place, or after a while, or after I've visited a few times. It can hide itself, and these are the darker locations I've been to. I went there because they actually went there on ghost adventures, and that was one of the big reasons I got into this. Not everything is demonic. We need to be more responsible about it. We need to show people how to interact with respect and get real answers, not just sit there and try and do it for the thrill factor of it, for thrill seeking. We need answers, and I love helping the spirits. I love either, if they want to stay, you help them grow. If they want to cross over, you help them get closure. There's just so many different instances that you can run into in this field, and it's a beautiful feeling, especially if it's children. For some, there are a lot of cemeteries that we go to, that there are little kids that are still confused, don't know why they're still there. I mean, it's a remarkable feeling to be able to help, because I always thought I was crazy. So to use what I've always experienced to help people finally is just a beautiful thing. Fred said, I'm here listening intently. I want to hear from you, Fred. What do you want to talk about? Hey, Abby. Thanks, Chris. But, I mean, I went there, and I went with the intention of helping, of showing people that it wasn't as negative as it had been portrayed as, to show people that, and not even show people, to show myself, to help. Something was trapped there. I felt like it was only that aggressive and that negative when they went because there was somebody trapped there, or a bunch of people trapped there that needed help. Because keep in mind, this particular area was a cattle trail in North Texas for the longest time, and in that instance, or in that area alone, there was a lot of KKK violence. There was a lot of just violence in general. These were also older trails where bank coaches would come through. Lots of robberies, lots of deaths in these areas. So I just figured it was people who needed help. I was wrong. So there were a lot of people who needed help, and I was able to help only a few that night before I got so sick. Not even sick. At first it was just the aggression. The aggression alone, and I never felt like anything like this. I've been channeled many times by even angry spirits, angry energies, and been able to control it and differentiate between myself and their feelings. This time I was completely overwhelmed. Now this time I had my brother with me, who's my best friend, and I had my first team member who's no longer with me. We were all there, and after I started getting a bunch of responses, and I mean back to back to back to back, I asked, I started getting a name, and I asked, is that you? And I said their name, and just because, I even bleeped it out in my documentary, because it was a child who had actually passed away there a few years ago. I won't say the name for the family's sake, but I asked, are you there? And he said, yeah, it's me. And then I said, where are you? And then right after that, behind you. And then I asked, are you trapped here? Yes. Is there anything I can do to help you? Get me out. And then right after that, I'm just drawn to this other area. Like, I completely stop what I'm doing. And on camera, you even see me get kind of weird. I stop what I'm doing, and I go over towards this other corner. And I'm like, I can't stay away from here. I go over there, and I'm like, how many people are here with me right now? And 3 different voices, it comes through and says, 4, 4, 4. And it was... my brother gave me this look like, he never done this stuff before. It freaks him out. He looked at me, and he's like 6'5" and a big dude. He got freaked out, and he was like, And as soon as I said that, I was like, are you counting that 4th person as the one standing right behind me? Because I just felt this presence rush up on me so hard and almost take the wind out of me. And then all of a sudden, I got this feeling on the back of my neck, like somebody just like took a knife and just went like that down into the back of my neck. I try and shake it off, move on. I investigate for like another 30-45 minutes. But the whole time I'm just acting kind of funny, and I just want to hurt my brother, who's again my best friend. There's no reason for me to be acting like that. I'm angry, and I don't know why, because I feel like at that point, like, it just latched on to me. Now, keep in mind, I'm wearing a hoodie the entire night with my headlamp strapped onto it. And we're in the forest, but there's no way anything can get into my hoodie. It is literally, like, tight. I have it, like, pulled because it was 40 degrees outside. Yeah, it was 41 degrees outside that night. Had it pulled tight. Couldn't get anything through onto my neck, anything. We're doing a session, and all of a sudden something like charges up behind us, and you can hear it in the bushes. And it's not an animal, because it's clear enough to where you can see through, but it sounded big. It did not sound like a little animal just rustling through the bushes. It sounded big, like it rushed up behind us. And keep in mind, there are sigils everywhere underneath this bridge, all different types of satanic religious symbols, all underneath the bridge. People have done rituals there for years and years, starting in the 60s. A very good instance of a tulpa, like Chris said earlier. You bring that energy there, pure darkness, that evil, and then other people are left to deal with it. Other people are left to experience it. Other people are left to be harmed by it. And that is incredibly irresponsible when we start bringing people to places like this, because they can leave. I cleanse myself. I'm very precocious in what I do. I'm very thorough. As soon as I went to walk off from the bridge, I started puking. As soon as I walked off, it was like it didn't want me to leave. It just did not want me to go. I felt like just drawn, and I just wanted to go back, but I wanted them to leave me. I just wanted to go back by myself. I get to the car, which is just in a parking lot, like maybe not even 30, 45 seconds away from the actual bridge. I can't stop puking for like about 30 minutes. Finally get into the car to drive home. I don't stop puking for 2 weeks. I ended up in the ER for 3 days because of this. When I got to the car, my neck started burning again. After that initial like stab that I felt, it always burned, but I didn't understand. Like, I just thought it was one of the side effects of what I feel from channeling these things. My brother looked for me, and there are pictures all over my Facebook page for that. I have 3 scratches, and I mean, they're little itty bitty thin scratches, like cat nails almost. Just 3 right down my back, and where it scratched me pissed me off, honestly. It was like it was trying to get a rise out of me. It's over my tattoo. It's a yin yang heart, and on one side is my brother Brandon John, on the other is Colton Kai. Yin yang, the balance that I always believe in life, and my brothers, because they mean the world to me. It was like you were trying to attack my strength, what I believe in most. And I took that as like a challenge, but I knew better than to go back there just to try and get answers, just to try and prove something. It was something I was not ready to deal with. And most of these people that go out there think that they're ready and think that they know just because they watch TV shows. And that's not the case at all. You have to be more knowledgeable. You have to be willing to acknowledge more than just good and bad and evil. You have to be able to acknowledge the in-between, the things that we as humans bring here, that level energy of evil. Sandy said, in all the years Russ and I have been doing paranormal research, we only had one really bad experience, but still was not a demon. I think you need to perceive energies as positive. Attacks, for instance, are not necessarily demonic by any means. We remain positive and always have a good experience. Fred said he's always learning, and we all should be. I mean, nobody is ever going to know everything. There's always something to learn, and there's always a new way to learn it. There's always a different way to look at it. Abby Lucas said, I still go back to a cemetery where a little boy found me, and I was bringing him toys and read to him. I enjoy being there. I always feel him. I've attempted to pass him over, but I think he's waiting for something. He passed in his 50s. His grave said he was 7. I think that's a beautiful thing, Abby, because one, you're helping him. You maybe not in the way that we try to or want to, but in a way that you can help at this point. Because like you said, he doesn't want to pass over, but you're providing him with love and comfort. And we were all, that's what I don't think people realize, is that we need to treat them with humanity, because they were at one point humans. Just because they're on the other plane, just because they come to us in a shape or form or way that we don't understand, doesn't make them any less human. And by treating them with that humanity, I think that's why you get not necessarily better results, but you get more detailed, in-depth, and more personal results. Chris said that paranormal is not a game. The TV shows are incredibly dangerous. Absolutely, because it shows you that anybody can just go in with a camera to a place and jump and call something demonic and it be real. You see so many different YouTube channels now where these people are making a crap ton of money off of it, mind you. Going into abandoned buildings, one that they're not supposed to be in, because you have to get permission. That's another thing. You don't break and enter. A lot of people that I see, it's like they break and enter into these places that you're supposed to get permission to go into, or that are completely run down, and it's just a hazard at this point. It's just insane. It's irresponsible. And like I said, like I just said with the Goatman's Bridge, it's irresponsible to leave those messes for other people to clean up. Because when you go into these places with bad attitudes, if you go into it provoking and starting something with these energies, and then you just leave it like that, the next team that goes in, or the next group that goes in, or just the next person who ends up buying this place or encountering this place, is left to deal with the energies and the animosity that you've left for it. You're not being responsible, and you're doing nobody any favors. Hey, Andrew. What's up, boo-boo? Abby said that she goes back to the cemetery and she brings him toys and stuff. That's one of the things that I find most interesting and most effective on my investigations is using objects. It's funny that you said that because one of the first places that I ever went was I got invited out to this church out in the middle of Kaufman. It's one of the oldest churches. It's on the poorhouse piece of land that used to be out there in Kaufman. It was one of the first poorhouses in North Texas. And I got called out there because inside of the church, things would always happen, like just the craziest things. And I actually got contacted by these two guys who live out in Kaufman. Were like, hey, you need to come check out this place because when we were younger, we had a crazy experience here. I was not expecting to get this inside of a church, nor in the cemetery area. That energy that is still lingering. You'd be very surprised. Even though they're laid to rest does not mean they're at rest. It's very unsettling, honestly. When I first started, at least, it was unsettling. But having the ability to help them makes it easier. But inside of this particular church, my gosh, this place is insane. So, inside of this particular church, there was a little boy, an older lady. It wasn't his mom, though. And then the caretaker from, it had to have been like the 1830s, 1840s that he was from. He had way older garb on, like just very tattered and everything as well. The lady was like from the early 1900s, and so was the little boy. The little boy and the lady weren't allowed to leave the church because the groundskeeper wanted to keep them there. And so I would try and, talk him through it. Why do you want to keep them there? It's just because you're lonely, all these other things. The little boy would constantly be reaching out for help. And keep in mind, guys, for people like me, you either see or hear or feel them so directly that it's just like channeling them almost. The little boy just wanted a friend. He was so tired of being lonely in there because nobody else was fun in there. The caretaker was just an asshole. Pardon my French, but he was an asshole. He was just crotchety in life. He was mean and persnickety in life, and so he was just mean and persnickety in death. And he was even more upset that I was there trying to help the little boy and the older woman pass over. He did not want them to leave. He did not want to be left alone. I kept telling him, if you passed over too, at one point I said, if you pass over too, if you go into the light as well, you can have peace and you won't be alone anymore. And very clearly through the SB7, this is another thing you can go back and watch. I mean, it very clearly, he yells at me. He goes, shut up. And I'm like, oh, okay, Robert. I don't know why. And I got kind of ghetto with him almost because at this point I'd been to this place like maybe 12, 13 times. And I was just tired of his attitude because the little boy was hurting so much. The little boy that night, I kept getting crayons and coloring for some reason. And I just wanted to go into this back closet room. So I did. I went back into this black closet room. And I start looking around. And then all of a sudden, I look up for some reason. And on this really tall shelf, there's an old ass box of crayons. These crayons had to have been like from the 1930s. On top of like a newer coloring book was like right underneath it. And it was so weird. It was like he just wants to color. I left the crayons out all night. We left, and I even texted the preacher. I was like, hey, there's crayons on one of the pews, just so you know you can get it before, a service or anything. It's there. We went back the next time. The little boy wasn't there anymore. He just disappeared. It was absolutely insane. I don't feel like he passed away. I think he was just like at peace to where he didn't have to try and reach out anymore. It was the weirdest thing in the world. Fred said, I will be getting the opportunity to access a Bigfoot research area in a large North American forest with a seasoned investigator, possibly real soon. I've always wanted to... Let me see. Sorry, it's pretty far away. I always wanted to believe in Bigfoot, but there should be more evidence, and there's not. I was always intrigued with the amount of sightings and claims of interaction with what appear to be pretty genuine witnesses. Now, Fred, with that being said, do you think that rhymes? Do you think that the Bigfoot sightings, because there's a lot of these instances where you see Bigfoot's, cryptids, different types of cryptids, Nessie, for instance, different things like that, even UFOs. You see those bright or not UFOs, skinwalkers and things like that. You see these bright flashes of light, almost like the similar descriptions that they have in UFO experiences. Do you believe that it's really Bigfoot, or do you believe it's an extraterrestrial type of life, shape-shifting almost to try and trick us? Because it's like, oh, who's going to believe that they saw Bigfoot? Or how they had the technology to, before what it was, they have reports, I think even as early as the 1940s, from actual military personnel about UFO encounters where they would fire or attack on a type of unidentified flying aircraft, and there would be a force field released, and then their ammunition was actually shot back at them. They've had this type of technology for how long? Do you think it's just them maybe using their technology to kind of trick us? Or when we get the pictures, when we get the good pictures, have that type of technology that makes, the resolution not work? Or some type of cloaking technology like they have on their actual spaceships. There's so many different types of theories on it that I would love to see if Bigfoot was real. But you're right, we would have more proof. But it's the same thing of UFOs. If the government wants to cover up something enough, they definitely will, and they definitely can. Abby says, so many of those YouTubers don't realize they too were just like me and you. Exactly what you said. Totally agree. I'm glad, Abby. That's what I felt lonely until he was lonely. Yes, and that's very heartbreaking, especially when it's the younger children. For some reason, I've always had a soft spot for kids, but I mean, especially because that sorrow you feel from an energy or a spirit that's still here, someone that hasn't passed yet, somebody that's still just hanging on. That energy you feel alone is just so immense, and it can be overwhelming at times. And those are the types of places that just draw you back. They constantly, it's like a beck and call almost. You miss it because it starts to be a part of you. You start leaving parts of yourself, and you invest such time and emotions into these places and these people, and it kind of feels like you're empty without it almost, or that you miss it, and it's very odd, but I love it. Sandy asked Fred where he's going, and Fred said he can't tell. Ooh, it's a secret. Fred said, I wonder if they are attached somehow, paranormal and other activity also in this area. Absolutely. It would be fun to see, a cryptid hunter, a UFO, oh my gosh. This is a trademark, y'all can't steal it. We're doing a cryptid, UFO, and paranormal, hunting session. We're all going to get together and try and do it and catch all three at once and see if they coincide with each other. Fred asked Sandy if they've ever had any experiences in the Northwest. I can assume so. That was a pretty big Native American story too. So I mean, I think that also has to do a lot with the shape-shifting or the skinwalking thing we talked about earlier. That has a lot to do with, I think it's something mystical, not something natural. Because if it was something natural, you would have found it by now. The U.S. is not like the Marianas Trench. It's not that hard to discover things. You know where to go. Okay, so, I've apparently been on for an hour. Oh yeah, we did. Well, it was lovely talking to you guys. If you have anything else that you would like to ask before I bounce, please do. If you do not catch it live, you can catch it in an archive. Type in your questions, and I will get back to them as soon as possible. I know Sunday night is just a bad time to do it, but we had technical difficulties, and this week has just been insane. But from now on, you can actually catch the show on Saturdays at 7 p.m., not Fridays, so you guys can go out and party and do what you want, but you got to sit your butt home Friday and listen to the show. One thing I did want to talk about before we go, though, or two things really. But the first one is that in October, thank you, Fred. I love you too, Sandy Wandy. In October, Strikefast Studios with Dave Childers, Bill Thompson from Louisiana Ghosts and Generations, and Gene Hamill, who directed the whole series. They're doing the Ghost Legends series. So in October, they actually have a premiere of all 3 episodes of the Ghost Legends series. You have the Bonnie and Clyde episode, which they actually go to the same ambush museum that I went to. So you get to see another type of investigation inside of that museum again. They're also premiering the Robert Johnson Devil at the Crossroads series, and they're also doing Marie Laveau series. They actually went down into New Orleans, into the French Quarter, and did that, which is funny because it actually is, like, except for Robert Johnson, the same exact thing that I went back and did. So, I mean, I went and did prior to that, so it's just amazing to see different aspects of it, because I love these stories so much. So to see other teams and groups cover it too, I want to see it all. They're going to be premiering all of those things. You can meet Dave Childers, you can meet Gene Hamill, you can meet Bill Thompson. I will be there as a special media guest, and this is all at the Bonnie and Clyde Ambush Museum that it's taking place. They are having a red carpet premiere at the Bonnie and Clyde Ambush Museum. Okay, you can sign up for an overnight investigation there with us, which everybody knows the Bonnie and Clyde Ambush Museum will forever be my favorite place ever in the whole entire world. That is my second home, and I just can't stay away from it. Many blessings have come from that place. Wow, it's just, I'm so excited. So if you're interested in that type of thing, and you're in the northern Louisiana area, or even just close, come on down. Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, anywhere in those areas, try and make it up for that event, because that is going to be incredibly special. Hey Raz, what's up, brother? Yeah, so that was one of the things I wanted to touch on. They're going to be doing their whole series there. It's going to be amazing. Make sure you guys are also tuning in to Ghost Hunters, because Daryl from the American Ghost Hunters show, he is actually going to be one of the co-leads and one of the new cast members. That actually airs August 21st at 7 p.m. And make sure you're catching everything on Paranormal Warehouse. The EVPS show, you guys are catching everything to Weebs, the Are You Weebs Live, to Mike and Bregg's the True or False show, or Real or Fake. Yeah, not True or False. Real or Fake. And then you're checking everything out on RU Media Network. We now have Gooseby with the Cryptid Paranormal show on this channel. You have Into the Abyss with Sean and John, with Sean John, as we like to call him. We also have the Richard Spassoff show, and there is another show by Dawn Deering. It's called, I'm drawing a blank because my mind is poop right now. Sorry, it's hot and I've been on here for a while. We have lots of different awesome shows on the RU Media Network. I mean, it's pretty awesome to see all these different types of shows, these different types of people coming together and giving platforms for everybody to come and show how weird they are, almost. Show all their weird little interests and let us be a part of it. You get some pretty crazy people sometimes. Oh, they're gonna go Bigfoot hunting. Make sure you take Polaroid cameras. If you use the older technology, it might work better. Alright guys, and right now, before we end the show, going to go ahead and do what I've been forgetting to do the last few shows, which that's completely my bad. It's just been pretty chaotic. Here we go. If you didn't know, started a group quite a while ago called Paranormal Bully Busters. Madison Smith from Madison Smith Paranormal came up with that name for us. But I started this because, one, we have so many different viewers. We have so many different listeners. We have so many people that watch the videos that we put out from our investigations. We have people who tune into our channels all the time. These resources, even if it just saves one person or helps one person, it is more than worth it to get it out there for somebody to see it and for somebody to know that they are loved, to know that they matter. So, Paranormal Bully Busters is a proud sponsor of StompOutBullying.org. If you are a loved one or a victim of bullying, no matter your age or circumstance, please call the number below or go to the website to get help. Someone does care. You can call 877-NO-BULLY, or you can go to www.StompOutBullying.org. You can also donate to the Stomp Out Bullying organization on this website. If there's anybody out there who needs this, you feel like your children need it, anybody, please reach out, and they have the resources to help you. They have the resources to go out to these schools, to do seminars, to make us better as a whole, to make us more aware of the struggling and suffering of our children. And it's not just children. As an adult, we can deal with this. Know that you always have somebody to talk to. They deal with all ages at StompOutBullying.org. Hi, Micah. Hi, Betty. See, this is what I was afraid of. Everybody's going to roll in later. That 7:30 was too early on a Sunday. But if you guys have any questions before I hop off of here, go ahead and type it in the comments, and I will get to it before I get to getting. I did want to, what is it? Yes, so Saturday on the 10th of August, yes, Saturday on the 10th of August, I will be having Alex King back on the show because we're going to go more in depth about all the things we didn't really get to last time. Last time was kind of just a goof off. We ended up not really talking about anything paranormal or serious whatsoever. But we will get more in depth and talk more about what's going on new with the American Ghost Hunter show. I'm one of the new hosts for the American Ghost Hunter show, so you guys can catch those shows on either Paranormal Warehouse or the American Ghost Hunter show, depending on which day. I cannot wait for more of those, and I cannot wait for more of these. I'm thinking every month I'll do one of these shows where, it's an interactive between us, where we all get to share our experiences, where we all get to put in our input for what the topic of the show will be. I had a wonderful time with you guys tonight. Remember, if you want to discover the secrets to the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Chris McKinnell, no, thank you for tuning in, sir. You and Russ have a good night. Sandy, goodbye. Fred, everybody else that joined in, Micah. Thank you so much, y'all, from the bottom of my heart. Have a good night.